afternoon. We'll call the work session of the Site Plan Technical Advisory Committee to order for December 10th, I think.
Yep.
We have one application, 361 Hanover, for site plan review, and we have Shanti appearing on Teams. Shanti, can you see the site plan? Or do you just see?
Yeah,
Okay.
I
All right.
can see it, yeah.
All right. All right. Welcome.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the Technical Advisory Committee, John Shagnon from Haley Ward with me here today, Shane Forsley from Hampshire Development Corporation, along with Steve Wilson. So this project is 361 Hanover Street. It's a redevelopment of the lot known as the Heineman Building lot. The applicant went to the planning board on May 16th for conceptual site review, which is a requirement before we can move through the technical advisory process. So that part has been completed. The plans include a development scenario that is subject to a zoning board approval relative to first floor use. The applicant wants to use the first floors for residential use and not commercial use, which is a requirement of the zoning district. So that's before the board. It was scheduled for a review at the November meeting, but the agenda ran long, so it's on the agenda for December. But we wanted to get your feedback in anticipation of that vote and a subsequent submission, full submission to Technical Advisory Committee. Project has frontage on Hanover Street and Rock Street. Currently, the building is fronted with an existing parking lot. If you want to go past the building plans to the site set, there's a part of this application is a subdivision. Currently, there's the main building, 361 Hanover, and then behind it is 191 Hill, I believe, and it's a smaller building. The two of the buildings on the same lot consist and are a part of a condominium, but the proposal is to cut off the back building as a separate lot, and that's what the subdivision plan shows. The lot would meet all of the requirements under the zoning and have 8 dedicated parking spots. The next plan, excuse me, is a proposed license area plan. Currently, the blue border is the extent of the limits of land ownership. So it has a history that goes back to very old times, and before Foundry Place, which you see on the north side of the blue area, it was the Rock Street garage, so it was occupied by the city. There's a retaining wall that runs along the north and northwest and west side of predominantly the blue area all the way up to the parking lot, and that retaining wall would be maintained by the developer should, as a part of this license area plan, if it goes through the process and gets approved. The license area would be developed with landscaping and other site amenities. That there would be no building in there, but that's a part of the desires for this application. The next sheet is just an overview, an aerial overview for reference. And then the next sheet is the existing conditions plan, their utilities in Hanover Street. Foundry Place is shown on the north or top side, Rock Street. And there's a parking area of 11 cars on the west side. That's sort of a neighborhood parking area. You see the parking spaces to the north of the building. Those would be eliminated. They are on city property, and they were part of a prior lease agreement with the Heinemann Building to park there. Next sheet is a demolition plan. The main building is remaining, but there's an addition in the north middle that will be removed. Other than that, it's mostly just taking out the existing pavement. The lot is predominantly paved, large percentage, and the lease area, the proposed license area is predominantly pavement. So there'll be some major improvements in impervious surface. And then we get to the site plan, and the proposal is to construct additional stories on the Building A, which is the existing Heinemann Building, and in front, construct 3 buildings, Building B, Building C, and Building D, so starting from on Hanover Street, left to right. Building B on the left would be 4 dwelling units, Building C in the middle would be 2 dwelling units, and Building D would be 8 dwelling units. There would be an access on between B and C that would come off of Hanover Street and go to Hill Street, which is on the right side in the middle of the page. There will be some surface treatments to identify the difference between that drive lane and a series of walkways that would get people from Rock Street through the site over to an extended sidewalk that would connect to the sidewalk that is being constructed on the GL Rogers building, which is going up. It has a Foundry Place address, but backs up onto Hill Street. The green areas are the proposed landscape areas. We don't have a detailed design yet, but we intend to, and that would comply with the open space requirements. Not shown here, but a part of the application is potentially going to be a public way, an enhanced street way that would allow for, it would be community space and allow for some additional height and potentially some units in the Heinemann Building. And then the next sheet is utilities. We're showing services coming from Hanover Street. We've got a new sewer service for Building D, a new sewer connection for Building B right out to the street, and then we're running a connection from the Heinemann Building in that driveway area to a manhole connecting Building C, and then running out to an existing sewer manhole in Hanover Street. Electric may come from the existing transformers at the Circle, Foundry Place cul-de-sac area, and run around to a new pad-mounted transformer, and then run along in between the front and back buildings and connect to an existing electrical vault, which is in the north corner next to the 191 building. So that would make for a loop service. There would be services to the buildings coming off of that loop. The water currently serves the building that will have to be relocated, but we're going to locate that between buildings C and D, and also run gas there. So that would be the feature of the water service feature. And then drainage would be a series of internal and external roof drains, and we're showing 2 catch basins between the front buildings and the Heinemann Building, connecting out to a proposed drain manhole in Hanover Street. So I think that unless one of the principals wants to add anything to the presentation, that's it for now. We look forward to your feedback.
All right, open it up for discussion. Shanti, if you had anything, just chime in.
Yeah, I mean, I probably want to see the better plans, or, before we move this on to the planning board. I know this is just a work session, but floor plan showing exit pathways. So in between, what is it, there's a 9-foot space between those two buildings, right there, yeah, sure. And just as long as, and I know you will, just when you do your code review, I think you'd be limited on your amount of unprotected openings, because more than one building on the same lot, this will all be one parcel, I believe. If that's correct, then the building code says that you have to treat it as an imaginary line down the center. So you're at 9 to 10 feet, and you'd be good to go, no restrictions with openings. But you're at 4.5 feet, so you will have some restrictions there, I believe. Just be mindful of that. But other than that, at this point, I don't have anything really more to offer.
Yeah.
If you have questions?
Yeah, I don't have a question, Shanti, just a clarification. I hadn't really noticed that that was 9 feet in there. I think that we do have some latitude to make it 10 feet, and then I don't have as restricted, as you say, opening. So after you pointing that out, I probably would change the size of that alley, find the space either out of the building next to it. In other words, shorten that building. And we also have, we will have some floor plans that's already determined on the front buildings and the back buildings with the egress plan as well. So appreciate your comments. I think we can
Okay.
fill in those blanks pretty quickly.
You guys probably already know, but the building code starting in January, it's the 2021. Yeah.
Yeah. Good point. Good point. Yeah.
They used to give us more years to memorize the new code, but now they're really putting the pressure on us. So
Yeah, there's a lot of.
Yeah. Right. Pretty much every 3 years.
Except the IBC.
Right.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Obviously, we need to see the truck turn template getting into and out of and through for access for our ladder truck. I'm assuming at least 3 of these buildings will have suppression system. I think the original building has a suppression system.
yeah.
So I imagine you'll need to have a separate water feed for your sprinkler systems. And, am I reading, so will this be one-way or two-way? Are people going to come in off of Hanover and have to leave on Hill, or is it going to be?
Well, let me address that. That's sort of the elephant in the room when you look at the plan, and it's difficult to understand over on Hill Street. Our understanding right now is that Hill Street is not a public way, and the Foundry Place, the building that's being built right now, and the 3 tenement buildings share a common property corner, which is out in the middle of, more or less in the middle of Hill Street. So if you can see that on the site plan, the people in the condo building, that's our direct abutter, that's number 1. I'm sorry, I can't read the print, it's so small, but the building adjacent to us fronting on Hanover Street, they have the an access easement that's at our discretion, meaning they can use our driveway as their driveway. Our intention would not be to connect Hill Street to our parking lot by any public access. It's at the closest point, at the widest point where the 2 buildings are is 14 feet wide. So in that area, as John touched on, we were going to propose a multimodal way, which means not automobiles, but pedestrians, bicycles, et cetera, providing a connector between Hill Street and Rock Street.
So multimodal
So-
would have to include cars, though.
Yeah, so to answer the question, the
buildings have cantilevered first floor parking. So the building on the left, building B, has 8 parking spaces, and they come off of that driveway, parking perpendicular toward the left. There's 4 parking spaces in building C, which come down towards us, and then 14, some stacked in building D. Okay, and so there would be two-way traffic. That's a 20-foot wide corridor, so we would anticipate the ability to have two-way traffic coming in and out.
So would the fire department access then have, go through Hill Street and out? We're not backing the left truck around that corner.
So this property has the right to use Hill Street to get out.
So that would be part of the fire
Yes,
department access.
yes.
Okay, we just
Yeah.
need to see that in the truck turn template then.
Yep.
So there will or will not be an access to Hanover Street?
There is driveway access to Hanover Street.
Okay, because I couldn't tell what was going on. It doesn't look like a driveway, so.
Uh-huh. It's just a surface treatment, so there's cobblestones and brick, so it's cobblestone driveway and brick sidewalks,
And the sidewalks are flush.
and the sidewalks would be flush.
Is the parking, you said it's cantilevered, so is it not enclosed?
I don't believe it's
No, it's open.
It's open.
And then even in the original building, will that be considered an unenclosed garage by code?
Be an enclosed garage.
Ventilation system. that's-
We'd have to do the same ventilation system we've been doing.
Yeah, if you want to go to the further up, there's floor plans. So the back building, I forgot to mention, has parking spaces. So there's a turn-in with a wide opening garage door, and then interior spaces, some stacked. And that's currently proposed to be 34 dwelling units.
Now, are all these buildings going to have fire suppression?
Yes. Everything over a two-family is required to have fire suppression.
Are they going to be condos or apartments?
They're going to be predominantly condos. I couldn't guarantee one way or the other because there are 4 buildings. It's been our practice to keep some of the units in a rental program. If the CUP is approved, then we're obligated to have 3 workforce housing units, which would be rental units. So it would be a mix of the two, if that's the case.
So you said the fire truck, or the owners of this lot can get onto Hill Street,
Yes.
but the multimodal path doesn't go to Hill Street, or?
Well, it connects with the sidewalk, which is being built as part of the Foundry Place. So I just have to tell you that my presumption was that the multimodal way did not include general car traffic. But I'm probably wrong. I'm just saying that was
Yeah,
that's what
I just
thought
noticed
read.
that you said that. Yeah, it shouldn't, we include cars in there. It's not an or, it's an and.
Okay, so, there'll be more, we'll have to discuss that further because
Yeah.
we have, as I said, a restricted clearance area there. So I think for a fire truck to get it through there, we wouldn't be obstructing that area, but I think the problem is that it's a really great shortcut
Right.
from Ridge Street to Islington. It avoids like three traffic lights and a couple of stop signs. So has become quite popular, and it's a very difficult place to control the speed of the automobile. So we come out our side door And, you know, you're 3 feet away from a car going by, so I think that's something I have to consider.
Sure.
We've got to consider the greater good of the project versus the CUP bonus, for instance, okay?
Yeah, yeah.
I think
yeah,
it would
makes
be our
sense.
intention under any circumstance to allow pedestrian traffic in the vein, you know, in the image of a sidewalk, not
Through the
a
site.
freeway.
Yeah.
Right, so,
But they, all the way through the site, though, even
Correct.
including Hill. Yeah.
correct. Well, Hill Street is at our property line a public way.
Because we looked at the map geo, and it just shows up as going, the property line's going to the center line. Is it,
There's that one
Between the-
point.
You mean right
Hill
there?
Street ends at Autumn.
yeah.
Yeah.
See how the property line goes right to the middle, and there's no
Yes. right-of-way
shown there.
So we did the development plans for Dale Rogers. The property, that's the three apartment buildings, owned the land going back. And a portion of that was purchased and then brought into the 6-lot subdivision of Foundry Place. And the new lot line was created there with easement rights, 10 feet either side of it.
So there's a 20-foot easement, public easement?
There's a 20-foot access and utility
Access easement.
corridor.
Oh, okay. Okay.
To whom?
So that's why you're here, so we'll get you that information.
Okay.
Absolutely.
You understand, I know you do, that it's quite a, not that I have any level of understanding compared to these two guys or many of you, but there's a lot of historical lot lines and property lines there that go back 100 or more years.
Sure.
So the research is pretty tedious, and and currently, the most recent conveyance that we're talking about, it isn't even clear to me as the owner of the property, because it's off of my property, okay? There is clearly an easement from the 6-unit building that the hand is on right now to go through our property, so the considerations were to create another driveway going directly out to Hanover Street between our properties, or to allow them to drive through the general roadway between the buildings and out to Hanover Street. And then there has been some discussion from other abutters as to whether that was a public right-of-way, including our discussion about the city and that whole thing in the back, et cetera. So
Yeah.
it's not a simple analysis, is what I'm saying, so.
Yeah, and the Heineman building, their property line went all the way to Autumn Street, and properties were divided off over the years. So I think you'll find that their rights, even irrespective of the trade of the conveyances, they still use that as access and maintained access that way.
Sure. I guess from my perspective, I think, and Dave hit it right on the head. To me, that's not Hill Street. Hill Street ends at Autumn,
Sure.
and Hill Street does not go all the way through to the property we're talking about here today. So
True.
I guess
We
that's,
should probably retitle it private right-of-way or something.
sure.
Yeah. Good point.
So that speaks to some of the complexity, I think, for me, as a builder, developer, a lot of this, of how we treat that area has a lot to do with the public safety and the fire department, whether they, in a fire situation where they would direct their apparatus, and whether they, because they're only gonna get out of there in or out, but 2 fire trucks I don't think could fit through that space coming in and going out. So I think we're leaning on input from the departments to help us figure that out. But I've been told by the attorneys and by the engineers, civil engineers sitting next to me, that we have the right to go over that, whether you call it Hill Street or right of way, but we do have the right to open that up, if that's the smartest thing to do.
Yeah, we just would need to make sure that we have the right to go on it and that it's more or less passes muster.
Yeah, I think what we'd be looking for, both from a public safety perspective and then if you're looking at including some kind of multimodal way through there, it's the ability that that's going somewhere and you can get back out to a public right of way, that's not going to be closed off at any time, those kinds of things. And that may be in place already, but,
Yeah,
we'd
you
have to
see how our property line carves that odd angle. First of all, it's not quite parallel to Hanover Street where your arrow goes there, and then it turns down and towards Hanover right there. So that piece of land that has the tag on it right there belongs to that 6-unit property right there. So we would want to make sure that we have the right to give you the right to go through there, okay? And as I said, you'd get any of your apparatus, I think, would fit through on our property, but I don't think you'd get another truck going the other way. So that, that's what I know about it. I just want you to understand the geometry of the lot at that point. How would you, let's say there was not public access there, but we wanted to keep it open for the fire department, how would we manage that? Are you amenable to a gate that you could operate, or?
We don't really like to see the gate, but we have, in some developments, they've had like a slate raised curb with signage, amenable, something like that works.
Like emergency vehicles only or something
Yeah.
like
Over at the Kate Street condos, they actually put in, the curbing that they use for roundabouts that have the chamfered edges.
Yeah.
So they actually put in a raised island, but the curbing is chamfered, so if you had to in an emergency, you could actually drive a fire truck over it.
Okay,
So
good
it's
to know.
curved off, but it's
So
at the
somebody's
same
not gonna
time,
put their,
if there was a crisis,
Yeah.
you could get through. But it would be very uncomfortable in a car.
yeah.
And then some lessons learned that we've had is signage, so people know it's an emergency access way, so dumpsters or vehicles don't just park there,
Yeah.
sort of thing.
Keep it open.
Right.
So yeah, I think so there's access for the fire department, and there's access if you want to do community space. And just trying to define those so we can understand them. It's going to be
Yeah.
important.
Yeah, well, I mean, having this work session is helpful for
Yeah,
us
that's the point.
to plan that. So.
And then if you did do the pedestrian way through there, there's a lot of parking going on. Is it going to be clear to people how to make it through without having conflicts with pedestrians and bikes and cars parking in there?
Well, I think if you look at this, I mean, I hate to, editorialize too much on the plan here, but the intention, or at least I thought the intention of it was to cobble the sidewalk and pedestrian ways, provide a curbing between the two, and you can see that line running parallel to Hanover, close to the existing building. I think that was sort of the pedestrian/vehicle break. Is that what I'm
Oh,
reading, Joe?
Okay, so the pedestrians stay up there?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep.
And
Yeah,
then
there
there's
are-
some benches there and stuff, so it becomes, I think, in a horizontal, not a plan view, but a elevation view, I think it becomes more obvious where the sidewalk is and where
Yeah.
the vehicles are.
So there is There is a handicap parking space and a delivery space which have been identified, and obviously the entrance to the garage of the Heinemann building. But I don't think it presents an overall danger due to the volumes. So, think of it like Lower State Street, where there's some driveways that cross the sidewalk. So cars that need to get in there and the pedestrians sort of coexist. Trying to separate the walkway, put it against the building, just sort of diminishes your useful landscape space, and takes away, will take away from the overall feel of the streetscape. The way it's designed here, it has some significant landscape area and the opportunity to put in significant appropriate lighting, bench areas that are shown.
Well, yeah, I'd encourage you to look at that community space pretty closely, because the open space can't be where the community space goes. It'd be separate.
Correct, so all of the green areas are open space.
Yeah, that's why I brought it up, because
The community
looks like for
space-
benches and trees and whatnot. I don't know, that's what I'm looking for, where that would go. Is there room for that?
I'm not sure they're mutually exclusive. Some of your open space can be contained in the community space.
I think for the 10% community space, that would be separate from the open space. So you'd have to do the open space calculation according to the zone, and then the community space calculation according to the incentive. So they're crossing over each other.
Isn't the community space more of an easement than, so the
Yeah, it's like public space.
public use?
Yeah, we think of it as public land almost, it's just,
Yeah,
has an easement for that, but it's public.
right. But I
Whereas
don't,
the open space is private property, but you kept it open.
I wasn't, not too sure those have to be totally exclusive.
Right, I mean, like, the benches can be included in the community space, like you have seating.
Yeah.
I mean, I can
Yeah.
put this to bed. I think
Yeah.
you guys could resolve.
Yeah, I
that
was going to
discussion.
suggest that maybe we should
The amount-
work
what I'm ta- what
in
we're
between the
talking
submittal,
about.
Yeah.
like, come in
A
and
couple of
go
benches.
through a community space.
Yeah,
plan.
it'd be worth
And,
talking
if
about.
I did that and I had to skinny up or broaden another green space area, I think the whole intent of this plan is to provide a more bifurcated facade on Hanover. So we have an alley, we have a driveway entrance, or two alleys, and another one facing Hill Street. So the whole idea is to minimize, this is not optimizing the revenue stream for sure, this plan, okay?
Right.
So I'm showing the willingness to improve the plan for the public benefit. I think what I would say is that, for me, there's already a pedestrian bicycle sort of pathway there, bikes, and more people go in front of our building to go downtown from all the neighborhoods on the side, up towards Rock Street and beyond.
Sure.
And so fundamentally, I don't think we want to stop that. I think it adds a sense of openness. So if we have to gather another 20 or 40 or 60 square feet of open space, depending on how your subsequent discussion on this goes,
Yeah, we can talk about.
certainly do that, okay? And if I need to modify the tactile nature, like make the driveway area more of a smooth driveway and the sidewalk curbed and cobbled, for instance, so you can really see and feel where the sidewalk's supposed to be. And we really haven't made an effort to skinny up these driving areas, although in my mind, I would prefer that the only people using this courtyard are what I call the courtyard, the driving area, the people who live there, who are very familiar with how the traffic goes, et cetera. I think if I start putting, if I found some way to get a car through there, or two-way traffic through there, I don't think it's enhancing to the neighborhood or the project in itself. So if I could just throw that out philosophically, our focus isn't to develop every square foot of the site, because that would have been the previous vested plan that we were talking about today. Also on this plan, as John mentioned, and I'm going to say this for a reason, I know Peter Rice knows something of this, but the area around the back of the building, what I guess is the northwest or the north side, you see that key, yeah, northwest. The blue area is really a throwback to the access to the Rock Street garage. It includes a retaining wall, half of which is vintage and half of it is modern. And I think that the blue area that you see here would be not developed as buildable space or even hardscape. It would all be, greenscape to soften the edges of the building, like the strip on the left-hand side as you look at this plan. That and the area towards Hanover is really just a wasteland. Literally, it doesn't have good lawn on it. It doesn't, it's in the whole intent of trying to get a license for this area is to peel up the hot top and put landscaped area out there, not to build on it. And in fact, there's currently a restriction, which is hearsay to me, but I believe that I don't know if Dave, if you know anything about this, but the area to the northwest that we're looking at right here is all not buildable. It's not to be built on, so there's no vertical construction allowed in that area, which is a pretty not recent, but modern interpretation. I'm not sure why, but that's what I've been told. Not that I ever wanted to build anything on it, but
In the back of your building?
yeah, I think that's a restricted construction area. And Peter Rice, I think would know about it if that was the case, but somebody told me that, and I intended to speak, just a week ago they told me that, so I haven't had a chance to run him down.
I haven't heard that.
And talk to him about it. I'll keep you briefed
Yeah,
on it.
yeah,
Or
thank
we
you.
will on that.
Yep.
So Steve, if I can hop in a little bit here about the license area, because I did meet earlier today with the deputy city manager and with Peter Rice to talk about that license area, and similar to how we've handled some of these requests in the past, I would recommend, because you're talking about the private reuse of city property, that we take that, and try and work on some agreement between us that we can bring to the city council before the full planning board, so it can be referred so whatever that agreement is that we can recommend, that can be referred by the city council to the planning board, be considered basically at once, and then all easements, if there's community space, if there's workforce housing, if there's a license or something else for that area, that can all come back in one neat package.
Yeah, I mean, we had not, just so we know, we're all fully, and I look forward to talking to you about that. We have had some preliminary discussions. Our intention to acquire that property is only, it's not necessary to our development. It's really just to make it nice and to have somebody responsible for maintaining it. It's very difficult for the city to maintain it because especially where the retaining walls are, there's no access to get up, even to get to it at this point, unless you have a crane to lift your mower up off the hot top. So I'm hoping to lay a strong pitch out there to turn it into the responsibility of the homeowners association to maintain it and to present a landscape plan that would encourage you guys to say yes. Okay, so
I look forward to it.
yeah. And so whether it's buildable or not buildable is a moot. I just want everyone to understand that. It's not for any other purpose but to get it maintained.
So back to that issue that we need to talk about the open space and community space. And
Yeah.
apologize for not showing the community space
Oh, okay.
limit on the plan, but We do have a planner, unfortunately he's not here today, that worked out the machinations of that, so we'd be
Okay, yeah.
interested in making sure that we can bring that to you and get concurrence.
Yeah, it'd be worth talking about that probably, yeah, before you submit it. Make sure everybody understands it.
What is the, in a perfect world, what's your anticipated, completion? 2 years, 3 years, or we've got any idea?
I mean, you're asking me to be presumptuous, okay, but my thought is that we've had we're maybe 6 months in the hole here from the May hearing at the planning board where we've changed the site plan, the architecture, and sort of the philosophical presentation, and really in response to what the neighborhood, what's suitable for the neighborhood. John mentions that we have a planner who came in. The complexity of the zoning in this area required that. I mean, I couldn't figure it out completely with any confidence. So we're looking at being under construction maybe halfway through '25. I think that I would phase the construction into 2 phases, so I didn't have the whole site under construction at the same time. I think logic would have me expanding and renovating the existing building first, and then moving to the smaller buildings out front, which to me provides the laydown area for the bigger building. The buildings out front are a much smaller scale, would require less laydown and less disruptive to, the area of the site that's right on Hanover Street and almost right on Rock Street. So maybe it's from right now 2.5 years,
Yeah.
end of
Okay.
'26.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, and obviously, this will need to see CMMP, I'm sure, no doubt about that.
Oh, yeah,
Yeah. Okay.
and constant updating.
Yeah.
Ready for our stuff?
Yeah.
All right, we got a couple of comments from Eric Eby, couldn't make it today. The parking stall dimensions and plans need to be shown for all the buildings. And then if you guys could lay out what the parking requirements are and how you meet them, or if a CUP is needed. The spaces adjacent to walls or columns should be a foot wider to allow for maneuvering and for opening doors. And then with the narrow drive aisles, it appears the flush sidewalk will need to be driven over to make the turns into the garage, so some more details are going to be needed there. The handicap spaces should be closest to the accessible routes, which would be the elevator in the shown plan. So I believe that on the far right wall is the second handicap space that he was talking about there. I believe they both need to be on the handicap route, which is the elevator on the left. And then plantings along the sidewalk of Hanover Street should be the type that won't overgrow on the sidewalk and restrict use in future years.
So I got a bunch of stuff for you guys. I think what I'm gonna do is just scan the plans that I have so you can see everything. So just in broad strokes. John, we're gonna want you to use the 15-inch PVC sewer that goes down Hanover Street toward Bridge, and not the one that you're showing tying into. On the existing conditions plan, you're missing several utilities that I know are there that may impact your construction. One of which is primary electric that's underneath the sidewalk that goes down the edge of Hanover Street, that Eversource put in as a backup loop 7 or 8 years ago. It's underneath that concrete sidewalk in front of the site. So that's going to be directly adjacent to where your foundations are going to be, so you're going to have to plan for that. You're also missing the communications conduit that comes out of the pole that's at the corner of Sudbury and Rock Street. There's a pole there with several drops on it. That goes to the manhole system that's out by the corner of Foundry Place Garage. And I've drawn these in for you so that you can see them, John.
Okay.
The water and fire services for the existing building, you're not showing those on the plan. You're not showing the existing sewer lateral for the existing building or the Last Chance Garage. So I've kind of drawn those in for you where we think they are. So you're gonna have to show all those because they're gonna impact your development. The electric pole boxes that you're showing on the existing conditions plan are old lighting for the parking lot that's been abandoned. So that's just junk in the ground. You can get rid of that. The existing oak tree that's at the corner of Rock and Sudbury Street, the city is going to be wanting to protect that. So where you're showing that transformer is really too close to that tree to protect it because of the underground digging that you're going to need to do, put the conduit in. So we're proposing that it goes up halfway up the side of Building B instead of being right next to the tree. The drain pipe that you're proposing, I think we agree with, so that's fine. You're gonna have to show all the different water services. If they're gonna be condos, we're gonna let you put in different water service for each building, but, so I got those kind of laid out where I think they should go for you. The manhole structure that's on what is city land behind the Heineman building, I believe there's actually two structures. I think there's a structure there for the communications for Last Chance Garage too. You're showing it as one manhole, but it's really two. You're also showing the electrical tie-in location for the primary electric going to that. That's secondary power, so Eversource won't allow that. So you might have to end up putting in a handhold in that, somewhere on that line that Eversource is using as that backup feed now that I already talked about. It's under the sidewalk. It might go in that, might be going in the sidewalk in front of Building D. Steve, the city can't let you put brick sidewalk on Hanover Street. It's not allowed by ordinance. So we're gonna have to work through that. You probably could put in some decorative brick on your side of the sidewalk, but the concrete's gonna have to stay. And you're obviously gonna have to rip it out to put the buildings in, but when it goes back in, it'll be concrete. Cutting and capping of fire services, various notes, really. We're gonna, obviously, you're gonna be impacting Hanover Street. We just rebuilt the area, and you're probably gonna be impacting the parking lot on the end of Rock Street. So depending upon what you disturb, we'll probably make you mill and fill those areas. So that's the general gist of it. Like I said, I'll give you these plans so you can see all my notes. And you can put our final plan set together based on our discussions here today, but I just wanted to go over in broad strokes what we were thinking.
We had discussed the sewer connection out on what we thought, what we labeled as Hill Street, but now we know is between Foundry Place and the tenement buildings on Hanover. That's on private property. So I was questioning whether that was a smart place to go. I like the idea of going to the 15-inch out front instead.
Yeah, the pipe out front, the 15-inch that goes toward Bridge Street is oversized because originally it was combined sewer. So now we have a pipe that's really too big. So adding your sewage to that line actually makes it better. So
Right.
that's really the way we want to go.
And the other thing is the transformers, we've already had a site visit with the public service, the electrical company, and with this redundant
Backup loop?
backup loop is a little vague to us what the smartest way, or their recommendation to us is how we achieve that, because I think John would tell you there's a number of ways to do it, so we'll try to zero in on that as well, keep you in the loop on that.
The existing building roof drains where?
To surface.
To surface.
To what side? Backside, front side,
Backside.
backside, toward the retaining wall? Just has scuppers on the backside?
Yeah.
I mean, my preferred method for roof runoff is to get it in a pipe as quick as I can. So even if we use gutters on the front buildings, which I think historically would be the way to do those roofs would be to take them down to a perimeter drain and then out to and tie them into the municipal drainage. So I wouldn't be proposing any surface runoff from the buildings.
Yeah, I think we agree with that. It's just a question of whether you're gonna bring the roof drains down internally to the building, or whether you're gonna, I don't know what the shape of the roof is, because like, that has, it's not in my plans.
Next week, we'll be determining that because we've applied for the variance to convert the minor first floor areas into residential versus the commercial requirement right now. And I think if everyone's well informed, which we're working at, that's the number one gripe of the neighborhood is they really don't see it as an appropriate place for commercial use, and it's a dead duck. The other thing is that we've applied for some leniency on the penthouse, as far as this penthouse setbacks, which softens which is a softer treatment of these upper levels versus the mansard or gambrel, which you're sort of led to, okay? So if it's a mansard roof, then it's going to be, the flat part of it would probably be internal drains, and the slope part would be gutters to downspouts to a perimeter drain. The front buildings, I think, because of the shape of the roofs, which I think you're seeing an accurate depiction there, with all the gutters, perimeter collection and downspouts.
Yes, the final thought of discussion that was had this morning is that the city would like to see you put some sort of electric charging in that city parking lot that's at the end of Rock Street, off the transformers that you're putting in, so that there's some electrical vehicle charging down there. So that needs to get developed and thought about a little bit, but that's the general consensus coming out of the meeting that they had upstairs this morning.
And tell me just a little bit more about that. We would feed that from the buildings or from the?
From the transformer that's currently shown right there.
Yeah, but from wherever it winds up.
Yeah, so you wouldn't be paying for the electricity, but you would put in the infrastructure.
And why wouldn't we feed those from the two transformers that are backed by the cul-de-sac?
We might.
I'm just wondering if
developed.
that's an option, because
Be
we were
developed.
talking about it, yeah. And
Yep.
how would that be metered?
It would be on a city meter.
Where would you put that?
We would put a meter pedestal next to the charging station.
And that doesn't just take care of itself. In other words, the charging stations are metered in themselves.
Correct. Yeah.
So you still
Not that
need a
advanced yet.
meter?
No, right. We still need a meter.
I just don't know about it. Though.
Yeah, no. So we had to go through a bunch of that when we did the Bridge Street lot. So you can look at what we did in the Bridge Street lot,
Okay.
and you should be able to figure out what we did.
All right.
Just looking at it.
Or I can just
The
ask
lower
you
part of the
again.
Bridge Street, lower part of the Bridge Street lot.
All right.
There's a couple of charging stations and a meter setup, so you can see.
Yeah,
That was, sorry. No, that was an idea that we had talked about, but certainly subject to further conversation between us. Ultimately, bringing it to the city council.
Yeah, I don't know if you're looking at it, there's a lot of options with that nowadays, with developing some sort of a credit card payment thing as a part of that, right?
Sure.
Yeah. The transformer, Dave, putting it further to the northwest between the building and the parking spaces? Or is that what you were talking
You're
about?
saying
I was actually saying shift it south,
Shifting it south, gotcha, okay.
but shifting it north is probably okay too.
Well, shifting it north, it's too close to the building, you know,
So south
you
is-
could take up a parking space, but we don't want to lose a parking space, so I got you now, moving it down there.
Just out of curiosity, Dave, where do you think the sewer exits our building? Because we had it traced this morning, and it all points generally towards the direction of Hill Street internally.
We think it goes, we know where it is out by Foundry Place. So it's where the wall got extended, the new sectional wall, it's under that.
Okay.
And generally, just to the left of where that electric manhole is shown on John's plan. And we know that Last Chance Garage goes into that as well.
So it was
So right now, that's all on city property, so everything's well and good. But the two sewer laterals are combined right now. So if you're gonna reconfigure the sewer and send it out front, because you're adding significantly onto the building load, then we'll have to cut and cap the building service wherever it comes out of the building, but leave the rest of the service viable for that other lot.
But that doesn't have additional capacity to be able to handle.
Doesn't have enough, it's 6 inch.
Yeah, okay.
So with that number of units, it's just too small.
Yeah.
Okay.
I'm happy to start with a clean clean, properly sized service. It's
It's
just
better than a clean sewer lateral. That's what you say at Public Works. Something like that.
Yeah.
Not exactly what Peter said. It's something like that.
And that was probably the suspicion I had too, was that the sewer went to the north and used to go somewhere north of the garage.
Yeah, I
They
mean,
traced it in there all the way from left to right across the page this morning, from the furthest fixture towards Sudbury, all the way this way, straight line, everything right in. And then weren't sure where it went from there, but it must 90 towards the garage.
somehow outside, yeah.
We don't want to replicate the fresh air issues that we had on Bond Mall. It was a fun little time hanging out there with you guys. I don't know. We'll get
Coming
it
soon
figured.
to a theater near you.
So there's the roof
Yep.
The smaller, the first two are, I think you call them sloped.
Yeah, they're all sloped roofs,
And then
except for the big building.
The big building's a mansard. So.
Yeah.
So we were, along the back, we were thinking about, the sloped roof would have gutters that would tie into drains, that would tie into the drains, just, and then any interior drains would tie in.
It's all sealed surface now, so
Yeah. It's, if we
it is
can-
what it is.
Yep, I think it'll be going to a little less sealed surface,
Slightly less.
slightly less.
Same bulk.
But in the back, if the license area was converted to all landscape, that would be a big improvement.
All right, anything additional? Any other questions? Got some work to do?
Yeah, that's been very helpful, thank you.
All right.
That's later. Yeah.
Out the door, yeah.
All right, thank you all.